Welcome back to the From Saturdays to Sundays football podcast. It's one of your hosts, Cam. I'm riding solo again today. Should be the last one, though. Should have Kale back for Thursday's NFL episode, which means today we're covering college football. And surprise, surprise, another exciting week. But first, we're going to jump into recapping last week's most likely upsets that we talked about on last Thursday's episode. Starting it off with San Jose State. They at least covered plus 5.5 over Utah State. Minnesota plus 7.5. Talked about that. They won outright. That was a great one. I did talk about LSU. They did not cover, so that's a miss. And then we have Georgia Tech plus 1.5. Not a huge upset, but they did win against Duke. And then we had Washington plus 5.5 over Michigan, followed by UNLV plus 12.5 over Boise State. 2 misses. That's one thing. We're going to talk about the misses as well. But Coastal Carolina plus 10.5. They actually posted a little bit of a comeback. They were down 21-10 at one point, and they won outright over App State. And like I mentioned last week, with this rivalry, there's just something with it. I mean, on the years that Coastal was good with Grayson McCall, the quarterback, and they were maybe a 10-point favorite over App State. App State just found a way to either make it tough on them or beat them outright. And we saw that again this last week. And then Maryland plus 3.5. They covered UCLA. BYU plus 3.5. Talked about that game quite a bit. They won. And Stanford plus 18.5. They won outright. I hope you guys did what I did and threw a couple bucks on the money line just for fun. Crazy things are going to happen. I'm not going to say I'm the smartest analyst for college football in the world, and I was 99% confident this game was going to happen. I just know weird things happen. In Florida State, a lot of talk with Mike Norvell still not winning an ACC game. I thought, hey, wouldn't it be funny if he lost one on the road at Stanford as heavy favorites? And that's what happened. There was a bit of a controversial ending, which we'll get to at the end of our recap for Week 8. But starting with that, Louisville versus Miami was a great game. Louisville's playing really well right now. They've jumped themselves into the rankings too. 24-21 final. Fun stats out of this game. Jeff Brom is now 4-0 against AP top 5 teams during the regular season. That includes a win over number 2 Ohio State while he was at Purdue, 49-20. He also beat Michigan State, who was ranked number 3 at the time, 40-29 while he was at Purdue. And he's beat number 11 Clemson. 33-21 is another one to throw in there. So yeah, he's now 4-0 against top 5 teams. Jeff Brom, some about him going up against top 5 teams, doesn't matter where he's at. He also has a pretty good track record against top 10 teams in general. I believe is 8-4 during the regular season. So yeah, that was a great game. Chris Bell looked awesome at receiver, 9 catches, 136, 2 touchdowns. He now has 638 and 6 touchdowns on the season. Carson Beck struggled, 25 for 35, 271, 4 interceptions. Not going to get on the hate train right now for Carson Beck. I still think he's a good quarterback. I think Miami, it's more of a Miami thing. They kind of falter late in the season. We saw that the last 2 years. Not the end of the world, though, for Miami. They still have a good path to the playoffs. It was a tough game. Maybe a little trappy if you want to call it that. Still, talk about how Miami's fans don't show up. But it's like a 30 to 45 minute drive from the campus. They got to get an on-stadium campus. I talk about that a lot with Kale, especially off the podcast. But I digress. That was a great game Friday night. Talked about Nebraska, Minnesota. I have number 1 Ohio State versus Wisconsin on here just to talk about how Wisconsin has now been shut out in back-to-back weeks for the first time since the 1990s. They now fall to 2-5 and they have to play at Oregon this week. I think they're like 33.5 point underdog. We talked about Luke Fickell last week a little bit, being on the hot seat. I feel for him. It's tough with these matchups they're going through right now, but you got to do better than being shut out. They got shut out by Iowa 37-0 last week. Now Ohio State 34-0. So it's not the best time for Wisconsin right now. And then real quick, Texas A&M Arkansas was a shootout, 45-42 final. I've been talking about the A&M running game a little bit the last couple weeks. 217, 3 touchdowns for A&M, all players combined. Marcel Reed looked great throwing it, 280, 3 touchdowns. But Taylon Green also balled out. He's what kept Arkansas in it. He had 256 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 85 rush yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a baller, really like him. And I feel bad for Arkansas fans. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but one of my really close buddies is an Arkansas fan. He was born into it. Sorry about that. But Arkansas is 13 combined points away from being 6-1. They are 2-5. you got to feel for them. I mean, the defense is just letting them down. They lost by 3 to A&M and Tennessee, 6 to Ole Miss, and 1 to Memphis. Obviously, they got blown out by Notre Dame, but only 13 points away from a 4-game swing on their record. It's been tough for Arkansas defensively, to say the least. There was also a little bit of an injury controversy coming out of this game. They got fined. Texas A&M got fined. They found that they actually faked an injury in the game. Not going to say that swayed the whole game. It's just one injury, one play. But I mean, you like to see that they're stepping up on that a little bit on the punishment for that. It was a big fine, I think $50,000, which might be pocket change for Texas A&M. But at least they're keeping a better eye on that. Staying in the SEC for a little bit, number 5 Ole Miss versus number 9 Georgia, 43-35 final. That was a great game. They went punch for punch. Ole Miss just lost their offense in the fourth. I mean, 35-26 entering the fourth, couldn't score any more points. And hey, Gunnar Stockton balled out, 289, 4 touchdowns, and 59 rush yards in a touchdown. He looked great. Tennessee, Alabama, 37-20 final. Had an amazing 99-yard pick six to end the first half, which was apparently heard all around Tuscaloosa from the roar of the crowd. It's a 4th straight win versus a ranked team for Alabama. I think it's safe to say week 1 was a fluke. They got the jitters out. They fixed everything. They look like the old Bama that we're used to at this point, which is pretty cool. I know it's cool for Kale. Ty Simpson continues to play clean, smart football. Moving out of the SEC, we had Texas Tech, Arizona State. ASU, they're surviving. They're staying alive in the season. They're back into the rankings. They're just a much different team with Sam Levin in, so hopefully he can continue to stay healthy, and they can still push for the Big 12 race. Oregon versus Rutgers. Only really have it on here to brag a little bit. 56-10. Ducks rolled them. There was nothing like what happened last year with Oregon going into Wisconsin for a late night Big 10 matchup across the country. So that was cool. Love to see that. Feel bad for Graciano and Rutgers in a way. I mean, Oregon didn't really run up the score on them. They just kind of took care of business early on, kept it going. Number 10 LSU versus number 17 Vanderbilt, 31-24 final. Vanderbilt continuing to prove themselves. I know I might have questioned Vanderbilt being favored, but hey, they're playing well. Diego Pavia, 161 touchdown in the air, 86 rush yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He's playing really well. And Vanderbilt, again, we'll get to it in a little bit, but they're favored coming into this weekend against another ranked team. We talked about Georgia Tech Duke. Haynes King is just a dog. He's just playing good. Doesn't have any quit in him. He had 205 pass yards, 120 rushing, 1 touchdown. Very excited for the Georgia Tech Georgia game, which is the day after Thanksgiving. We saw what happened last year with 8 overtimes. I think this Georgia Tech team's a little bit more polished, so that'll be a great game coming up. USC Notre Dame. Kale and I picked USC in this one, man. I mean, USC just isn't winning their big road games. And again, South Bend, Notre Dame's not the easiest place to play. Notre Dame's playing well. They still have a good team. But if USC needs to get over that hump eventually, they're kind of reminding me of, I guess, what Texas A&M would remind us of a couple years ago, even going into this year, just kind of a little overrated, overranked in a way. They now dropped 2 road games, obviously 2 ranked teams. This one by 10, last one against Illinois by 3. Yeah, no, I would just like to see a little bit more out of USC. I mean, just keep the foot on the gas. I don't know. So they'll fall out of the rankings, I assume. I don't know if I've checked that, but moving on a little bit back to SEC, Oklahoma, South Carolina. Oklahoma had a nice bounce back, 26-7 win. Talked about the Utah BYU game a little bit. BYU is now 3-0 versus Utah in the last 3 matchups. I think it's BYU's best win of the season as well. I know we talked a little bit about BYU maybe not proving themselves for their ranking, but hey, they're winning. Bear Bachmeier, he's playing really well. Talk about him in a bit. Missouri, Auburn. 24-17 double overtime final. Auburn hasn't scored more than 17 points in an SEC game this year. I would say Hugh Freeze has a pretty hot seat right now, and I think he even mentioned you got to score more than 20 in SEC, and that's been their downfall so far. I mean, their defense is playing well, all things considered. I expected the offense to be better going this year, especially after we saw how they played against Baylor. Jackson Arnold still getting sacked a ton, just can't get it rolling. Ground game's kind of non-existent. Cam Coleman, he's good, and then the other receivers they have, it's kind of concerning that Auburn isn't able to get things rolling offensively with what the weapons they have. So we'll see if they turn it around, because I think Hugh Freeze is kind of pleading for his job at this point. I got Washington State versus number 18 Virginia on here. 22-20 final. The reason I have is because I have a new coin phrase from my friend who actually also happens to be the Arkansas fan. He ran track at Washington State. Couged it. They couged it in the end. And I say that because They lost due to a late game safety, and that's something that apparently only the Cougars can do. Give up a safety with about 2.5-3 minutes left and eventually lose the game by 2 points. Right here, another SEC game, of course. Texas versus Kentucky. I'm going to say Texas survives. I have no SEC bias here. Kentucky is not a good game, or not a good team. I don't care if they kept it close to Ole Miss. They also kept it close to Toledo. So I don't like what some people say with the SEC, like a bottom tier SEC team could compete with a top tier insert conference team. No, Kentucky's not a good team. Texas wins 16-13 in overtime. I think they're overranked. I think their ranking's inflated. Their defense is great. Their defense is playing great. I want their offense to play a little bit better, I would say, especially if I'm a Texas fan. I know we might have some Texas fans listening to this. I don't think you can confidently tell me that Texas is the team you expected to see this year, especially to this point in the season. So, again, we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kentucky wins out or loses by one score for the rest of the season. I don't think they're a good team, though. So I think this was a rough one. I think Texas fans should be a little bit worried. Another ranked team, Memphis, losing to UAB in one that they absolutely couldn't lose. But on the other side of it, UAB gets a big win in their first game without Trent Dilfer. And I just did some research on their interim coach. It's Alex Mortensen is their interim head coach. He played quarterback at Arkansas and Samford, and then was an undrafted free agent to the Tennessee Titans in 2009. And just to add on to the crazy coaching tree, if this guy is successful, he was a graduate assistant analyst for Alabama from 2014 to 2019 and 2020 to 2022. So who knows? Could be the start of another great coaching story that came from the Alabama pipeline. I just want to throw that in there. I know Kale will like to hear about that. Then Buffalo, UMass. I have this on here because I feel bad for the Minutemen. The way they went down, I'm sure people have seen it on social media. It's a 28-21 final. But UMass picked off Buffalo, waved goodbye with 59 seconds left while they were up 21-20. They had the ball at their own 19. How did their drive go? First play, unsportsmanlike penalty. Running play, losing 4 yards. Then they lose 1. And then what do? They throw the ball, get an incomplete pass, so Buffalo gets to keep a timeout. They then punt the ball with 44 seconds left. They only use 15 seconds of clock. Buffalo goes 50 yards in 4 plays, capped off by Victor Snow, who we've talked about before, with a 16-yard touchdown with 19 seconds left to win. So I added on there because I think UMass and Sam Houston are the last 2 winless teams in college football. This one was there for UMass. They just couldn't close it out when they really needed to. SMU rolls Clemson and Death Valley. Klubnik wasn't playing, but the Tigers fall to 3-4. Not sure many people expected that going into the year. I know I didn't. Florida beats Mississippi State, then fires Napier, and I believe he's now the 5th coach to be fired in college football history after a team has beaten Mississippi State. We've been talking about Napier for so long now. I guess you could say it was a long time coming. People might wonder why he gets fired after a win, but it was a close win against a team that's still not very highly touted or looked at highly in the SEC. So we'll see what goes on, what comes after him. Billy Gonzalez will be taking over. Fun fact, he played wide receiver at Colorado State in 1989, 1992, my alma mater. So I thought that was a little fun fact on there. It's his first time as a head coach, so we'll see how that goes. Iowa knocking down Penn State 25-24. It's just going from bad to worse for the Nittany Lions at this point. And yeah, so we talked about Florida State Stanford, as that was one of my upset picks. Controversial finish, as it looked like in the last second, 2 seconds left, Florida State crossed the goal line with the ball. They called it short on the field and had no definitive video evidence. But again, from the top view, it looked like he crossed. The only reason I'm okay with that call is because I don't think they should have had any time on the clock to begin with. So they threw it deep, no timeouts. Receiver catches it, gets down. Yes, there's 2 seconds left, but the clock should start when the chains moved, and the chains were moved before Florida State was set. So it kind of seemed like they were waiting for them to set and then spike it. So that's the only reason I'm okay with it. And also, don't be in that position if you're Florida State, 18.5-point underdogs at Stanford. But I digress. It was a great week. I mean, again, we talk about it almost every time. Might be a sleeper week. The games don't look that amazing. They're always going to be good. College football weekends are always going to be good. That's why I tell everyone. I had a buddy text me too saying I definitely wouldn't say this is a sleeper week, and I told him it never is. So yeah, really exciting week. Talked about some of the coach firings. Another one, Jay Norvell. Fired from Colorado State, 18-26 at CSU. He came from Nevada before that. The only thing is he was fired before a big rivalry game with Wyoming. And for the people that aren't from the area or do not care about Colorado State and Wyoming, They have a cool rivalry. It's called the Boot, and the way it happens every year. So this year it's at Wyoming. The Colorado State ROTC runs the game ball to the border of Colorado, where they're then met by Wyoming's ROTC, who runs it back to the stadium. It's just a really cool little tradition, especially late in the year. Like last year, it was snowing and they still ran it, and it's a solid trek. It's about, I think, a 40-minute drive from Colorado State to Laramie. So it's a long run, and they do it every year. I just think it's a cool tradition. So moving forward, Tyson Summers will take over. He has a 5-13 head coach record, all at Georgia Southern in 2016 to 17. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's tough hiring your head coach, especially right before a rivalry game. And again, many people might not care about it, but I know for a fact the people of Wyoming and Northern Colorado do. So who knows? Maybe we'll see something. We'll see some magic with him like we just saw with UAB or like we've been seeing with UCLA. And then moving on to the current hot seat tracker that we've had kind of going, Mike Norvell. He's got to be on the top of it for me. Florida State did come out and say they're fully committed to him. But, man, I think it's the buyout. It's got to be the buyout because I'm pretty sure his buyout is much more than James Franklin. But who knows? He's still a good coach. You know, we can't forget the 13-1 season. He has now an upset over Alabama, and if they finish great, they're just going to kind of use that as some leverage maybe. I don't know. But he's on top of it for me. Still got Luke Fickell up there. Got Hugh Freeze, Jeff Cho, Joe Moorhead, who we talked about. I went ahead and added Bill Belichick. I highly doubt he gets fired this season, but things are looking rough for Chapel Bill. I mean, if anyone tuned into the UNC Cal game, UNC had the chance to take the lead late in the game, and the receiver fumbled into the end zone. They end up losing that game. And Cal isn't the best team, but they're also not the worst. So, I mean, I think it's a 2-5 record for UNC at this point. I think next year they give him end of this year, next year, and if he doesn't get things turned around, I think he's out of there. I mean, we've already seen all the off the field issues. Don't want to get into it with his girlfriend, and also just rumors that he was acquired by the school in illegal ways. So yeah, I kind of just bad from the jump for Bill, but still a great coach in terms of his career. I mean, don't want to downplay any of that, but sometimes there is a time to hang it up, and if college isn't your thing, you know, this late in his career, if that's okay, people will still remember for the good he did. Going forward to the updated top 25, just some really cool things. That we're in a historical top 25 ranking right now, as Vanderbilt is top 10 for the first time since 1947. Indiana being ranked 2 is the highest in their program history. A&M at 3 is the highest since 1995, and Georgia Tech is having their best start at 7-0 since 1966. So really exciting times in college football right now. No, I just touched on some of the hot topics. I think the coaching moves, carousel, whatever you want to call it, at the offseason are going to be very interesting, and that'll probably be historical in its own way with all these big names out there. But yeah, with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the Week 9 preview. And I threw UCLA versus number 2 Indiana on here because I had to. I feel like I had to. I love what Kirk Cignetti said. They're playing a 3-0 team. I feel like he's looking at them like most people should. They're a new team since their changes. They're 3-4, but they're really 3-0. They've won the last 3. It's a 25.5-point spread. I would love UCLA to win, but I think to their detriment, they are no longer sneaky. And Kirk Cignetti, I trust that there is zero chance Indiana overlooks them. So I want to say Indiana wins. UCLA might show some fight. I just don't know if that fight lasts for 4 quarters. So yeah, going with Indiana. I don't want to say they'll cover the spread. I can see UCLA cover. Maybe like 21-point win for Indiana. Number 8 Ole Miss versus number 13 Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 4.5-point favorite. I think if Ole Miss, and I know you can say this about any team, keep the offense rolling the whole game, but if Ole Miss can keep it rolling late in the game, I think they can win. I mean, even if they got off to a slow start, I think if they can just keep it rolling as early as possible, hopefully, but like second quarter on, throughout the finish of the game, I think they can win. This is a huge game for staying alive in the SEC championship race. I think so far Ole Miss is just a little bit more complete. They've played in these big games. Oklahoma maybe hasn't shown up in some of the big ones. Yeah, they beat Michigan. They beat Auburn, both at home. So, I don't know. I think I'm rolling with Ole Miss on this one. Number 16, Virginia versus North Carolina. I have this on here solely because in 2023, Virginia was 1-5. They went into Chapel Hill and they beat number 10 North Carolina, who was 6-0 at the time. I don't know, throwing it on there. I'm not saying North Carolina's going to win. We just talked about Chapel Hill. But Virginia, they're playing really well. Hopefully they don't overlook any teams, especially a North Carolina team. On the road, it's 10.5 point spread. I think Virginia can take care of business. I just want to throw that out there for anyone who's into historical stuff. I don't know. The roles were flipped a couple years ago, and we saw the upset. So, yeah, I had to talk about that. Number 18, South Florida versus Memphis, both 6-1. Memphis has dropped the game to a bad UAB team, but they're still a tough team to beat, especially on the road. South Florida, though, no stranger to must-wins. All their remaining games are must-wins, and South Florida comes in as 4.5 point favorites. I'm rolling with the Bulls here. Again, though, Memphis is not a bad team. They had a slip-up week. We see it all the time. Most teams have a bad week. Just so happened to be against UAB, who had a new head coach. So I don't think it's necessarily a sign of things to come for Memphis to just completely derail their season. This is a great way to get back on track, though, and I think that'll have the people there hungry. Kansas State versus Kansas. Kansas is 2.5 point favorites. Is this the year that the Jayhawks can finally win the Sunflower Showdown? They haven't since 2008. Kansas State has a 16-game win streak. Last year, final score was 29-27. I don't know. I'm weirdly a Jayhawks fan. Maybe it's because I ran a dynasty with them for like 10 years in an old NCAA. I just don't know. I'm not confident. It's just this rivalry has been owned by Kansas State. And yes, there's a time all things must end, but it's a tough one on that one. Hopefully, I'm rooting for the Jayhawks this weekend, though. Bowling Green versus Kent State. Bowling Green's only 7.5 point favorites. Kent State's finally getting some respect. They went up 10-0 against Toledo last week. Final score was 45-10, but that's neither here nor there. Kent State was scoring some points early. They just couldn't the rest of the game. Auburn versus Arkansas. Battle of the SEC teams that struggle to win some close games. This is an absolute need for Hugh Freeze, but I don't think Auburn's offense can keep up with Taylor Green and the Arkansas offense. I mean, I think this is the one that Arkansas gets, and this is what really catapults Hugh Freeze into the firing talk if he loses this game. It's a tough game. Arkansas at 2-5 is not a bad team. This is the one I would entertain the arguments of a low-end SEC team actually being solid. I mean, yeah, this one, I don't know. I'm leaning Arkansas for sure. Number 4, Alabama versus South Carolina. South Carolina's played them tough. It's 11.5 point spread. I wish Kale was here to give his thoughts on this game. Me personally, I'm not worried about it as if I was a Bama fan, but I'm not a diehard Bama fan like he is. So I wonder if he's got a little bit of worries for that. Missouri, 6-1, ranked 15 at number 10 Vanderbilt, 6-1. Vandy comes in as a 2.5 point favorite for the second week in a row. I think this will be a great game. I think it'll be a close game, just like the LSU game was. I really like Pabula. I like Ahmad Hardy. But Diego Pavia's balling out. Cedric Alexander's really good. I think this one might be a little bit more high scoring than the last one we just saw at Vanderbilt, so I'm excited for that one. And then BYU is still on here. Now they're ranked number 11. They're actually underdogs again. 3.5 point underdogs for a second week in a row at Iowa State, who's 5-2. The Cyclones are still a good team, and maybe they can get back on track after a bye. But I want to talk a little bit about Bear Bachmeier, because I think he needs to get talked about more. He's a baller. 1,386 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks, 359 on the ground, and 8 touchdowns as a freshman. People only talk about him because he rocks number 47. And yeah, that might look a little funny, but the dude's backing it up. He's balling. I like BYU. Again, Iowa State's not a bad team. And we've seen this all the time with the Big 12, especially. The team that's ranked going in and losing, especially late in the season. So I would say I agree with Iowa State being favored, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to trickle some money for BYU. And then number 23, Illinois, is at Washington as a 4.5 point underdog. Again, would love to hear Kale's thoughts on this, but he's so busy having fun in Florida. This is an absolute must-win for Illinois, though. If they want a shot at the playoffs. Washington, 3-1 at home, only lost to Ohio State by 18 points, which is exactly what Illinois lost to against Ohio State as well. Illinois is 2-1 on the road. I think this is going to be a really close game, and it might just come down to whoever has the ball last. I give Washington the edge in terms of running back and receiver. Yeah, Hank Beatty has more yards than Denzel Boston, but Denzel Boston is that true wide receiver one that I think Illinois is lacking, so that's why I give the edge to them. Demon Williams, though, 1,837 yards, 10 TDs, 4 picks, versus Luke Altmaier, 1,821 yards, 13 TDs, 1 INT. Pretty comparable numbers there. Altmaier obviously has the edge, but Demon Williams offers a little bit more on the ground, 336, 4 touchdowns on the ground, whereas Altmaier has negative rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, though, so we can still run the ball. We've seen that a lot in the goal line packages. So, yeah, really excited for this game. I know Kale is too. Might be a little nervous. Maybe we can touch on that a little bit on Thursday before we get into the NFL. We got NC State Pitt. I put this on here. I'm just excited. Hollywood Smothers is balling out. 739 yards, 7 touchdowns on season, 6.6 average. Ranked number 6 in rushing yards in the country. Pitt's 6.5-point underdogs. I'd probably rock with Pitt, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring game back and forth. I got Western Michigan versus Miami, Ohio on here. They're both 4-3. They're both 3-0 in conference. That's the reason I have it on here. Big MAC implications. Buffalo is another team that's 3-0 in conference. But these are the two battling out. Miami, Ohio, 1.5-point favorite. If Western Michigan wins, they have a pretty clear path, I'd say, to the championship. They don't play Buffalo, but they do play Central Michigan and Ohio, who are playing pretty well right now. I think Miami, Ohio would have a slightly harder chance especially if they don't win this game. But that's exciting for any MAC fans out there. We got Texas versus Mississippi State. Trappy field. I don't know. It's a trappy field, this game, if you can call it that. Like I said, not the highest on Texas right now. We'll talk about the game in a bit. Texas A&M, number 3 Texas A&M, 7-0 at number 20 LSU, 5-2. A&M is a 2.5-point favorite. This is another prove-it game. Texas A&M has been doing it week in, week out. As much as I want to say I don't agree with SEC bias, a ton of SEC teams are ranked, so it seems like every week, all these SEC teams are playing conference ranked games. So there's another big one. Death Valley is obviously no easy place to play, but hey, Louisiana Tech held their own at LSU before, so I'm confident in A&M. Let's see if they can keep my confidence up or not. And then last one I got, Houston 6-1 versus number 24 Arizona State, 5-2. Arizona State 7.5-point favorites. The reason I put this on here, Houston's a quiet 6-1. This would be their chance to really get on the map. So obviously, I think it'd be awesome if the Cougars win, but again, Arizona State, night game, one thing. And Sam Leavitt, there's a different team with him. Jordan Tyson's still balling out too. He's great. So yeah, that's my preview. Obviously, there's a lot of games I missed. There's so many fun games, though. You guys are kind of seeing it week in and week out. We might talk about 15 and then 30 end up being great. So definitely tune in, see the action of those games. And moving forward, most likely upsets. So just a little bit of a recap. Straight up, we have 8 straight up wins on the last 2 segments combined, 5 covers, 5 misses. I'm going to be generous to myself, call that a solid 13-5 record. And again, these are, even if you want to call it an 8-5 record, these are all upset games. I would take above 500 for just giving straight upsets. And, we're not scared with it. Like one week, Kale picked Pittsburgh at plus 10.5 to win outright. Like we're not just picking the 2.5, 1.5 upsets. We're trying to branch out a little bit. Not a lot of other people do that. I don't see many analysts calling 10-point upsets week in and week out and hitting them. So just to build our credibility a little bit. But we're going to start. My first one actually plays tonight. Western Kentucky over Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech last week lost 35-7 to Kennesaw State. Western Kentucky had a really rough outing at home against FIU, losing 25-6. Western Kentucky is not a bad team. They just couldn't get together that game. I'm going to roll with Western Kentucky to win outright. They were 4.5-point underdogs. Now they're 3.5. I think the line even moved down to 3. Ole Miss plus 4.5 versus Oklahoma. I think Ole Miss at least covers, but I could see them winning that one. I have North Carolina plus 10.5 here. This might be my Hail Mary one of this weekend. Stanford was last weekend, but I got them on here plus 10.5. Memphis plus 4.5 for South Florida. The way it works, like I said, Memphis just lost to a really bad UAB team. You would think they're going to lose. You would think they're going to come out flat the same way, but they could be even hungrier. And we've seen what they've done in the past. Arkansas, we just talked about. Arkansas is not that bad of a team. Memphis was able to beat them at home. So I got Memphis on here as a likely upset. Kansas State, I think, unfortunately. I think Kansas State's going to beat Kansas. Yeah, as a weirdly big Jayhawk fan, that's kind of a bummer, but I got them on here plus 2.5. I got App State plus 13.5 versus Old Dominion. It's like ever since I highlighted Old Dominion, they've just been flat. they want to discredit me, man. I was so happy for them. I was so excited for them. So I got App State plus 13.5 on here if Old Dominion wants to keep hurting my feelings. Kent State plus 7.5 versus Bowling Green. Obviously, Kent State got smoked last week, but Bowling Green also had a really rough game against Central Michigan. And if Kent State is hungry, it seems like they are, man. There's a little tiny shred of MAC hype around Kent State right now. They're already doubled the wins from last year, 0-12 to 2 wins. That's pretty awesome. So I don't know. Kent State, maybe the Golden Flash and get something going. Akron, plus 9.5 versus Buffalo. The reason I have it, I've said this before, Buffalo just needs to realize they're a good team. They're not a bad team in the MAC, but they've been playing bad against teams that they should honestly be blowing out. We saw that last week against UMass. Happened against Kent State. They barely beat Kent State too. They barely beat Eastern Michigan in overtime when they were 10-point favorites. So I don't know. I think maybe this is the week they figure it out and they just completely blow Akron out of the water. But until that happens, I'm at least rolling with Akron plus 9.5. BYU plus 3.5 versus Iowa State. I'm both sides of the coin here. Iowa State, they got to prove that they're still alive in the race, but BYU has to continue to prove that they belong in the top 12. Western Michigan plus 1.5 versus Miami, Ohio. That's maybe one of the smaller ones on the list, but Western Michigan's been playing pretty well, especially as underdogs. Miami, Ohio's been slightly of a disappointment for MAC teams. So I don't know. I might rock with the Broncos on this one. And then finally, I'm rocking moneyline Mississippi State over Texas at home, plus 6.5. Already made some money on them, plus 6.5 at home versus a ranked team that was Arizona State. Obviously, earlier in the year, can't compare apples to apples, but I'm rocking Mississippi State. I don't know, Texas, the hype around them is kind of frustrating me. They did not play a good game last week. Mississippi State held their own at the Swamp, and we all know the state of Florida football, but that's still our thing to do. So yeah, Mississippi State rounds it out. Those are the upset picks for the week. And that's about all I got. Again, might be a shorter episode today without Kale here helping me out. But last one, thank you guys for sticking it out with me. Really excited for this week of football. Excited to get Kale back so we can talk NFL on Thursday. And I hope you guys can tune in to some of the weeknight Conference USA matchups. We got 2 tonight, 2 tomorrow. Got a game Thursday, South Alabama, Georgia State. And then we got a decent slate on Friday before kicking off the weekend. So that's all I got. Again, thank you guys, and I'll catch up with you next time. Peace.